What's up, guys? Matt Brown here for lineups.com. Let's talk some week 3 Survivor. No real blood in week number 2 again. Most of the most popular choices all make it through. And so if you're watching this video, you likely have either you're still alive or all your entries are still alive, or the most of your entries are still alive. If you had multiple entries in the pool that you are in, it is going to be interesting to see how things and strategies change. Now we are dealing with a bunch of backup quarterbacks this week. We know that Joe Burrow going down for an extended period of time for Cincinnati. Did you use them already, or now does that kind of become one of those teams that you don't use over the course of the season? So lots of that to talk about here. We got this article over at Lineups. By the way, if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button down below. Do appreciate that. That's keeps us getting all this stuff out for free. So please hit that subscribe button. Do appreciate it. This is over here by Noops. We'll look at that in just a second. But go down and look at the contenders. Of course, Thursday night, going to start things off with the Bills. They're big 12.5 point favorites. You can see the Packers on the road, 8-point favorites are certainly going to be in consideration this week. Come down a little bit further. The Bucs at home against the Jets. The Jets, of course, are going to be going with a backup quarterback and Tyrod Taylor there in that one. Down a little bit further, you can see the Falcons on the road at the Panthers. Panthers defense just looks like one of the absolute worst in all of the NFL. Come down, you see the Seahawks, the 7.5 point favorites here against the Saints. Saints have been a little bit better, actually, than I thought they were going to be. I don't know if that's going to equal any wins in games or not, but they've certainly been a little bit more feisty than I thought that we would be seeing out of them. And then come down here, and you can see the Chiefs are big 6.5 point favorites here over the Giants. So those are our real considerations this week. I guess you could throw the Ravens in there against the Lions, but I think you're being a little too cute and maybe a little taking on a little bit too much risk for no reason there in that one. Over here, Noops looks at some of the stuff courtesy of our buddies over at Pool Genius, some of the stuff that they have going on. You can see the win probability. We just talked about all of those teams that have the huge spreads this week. Noops is liking the Seahawks, the Bucs, and the Commanders. It's very hard for me to get away from, I think, Seattle this week for the vast majority of my entries. Luckily, still have all 10 available over there in Circa. And so I think for me, if you look at Seattle, you're getting New Orleans at home. Like I said, they've been a little bit more feisty than I would like. It's certainly when I'm trying to go and pick on a team for Survivor, but man, it's still just devoid of real playmakers and playmaking ability and all of that. And honestly, Sam Darnold has been much better than I expected too. I thought maybe there was just a perfect circumstance situation going on up there in Minnesota. Great coach, great personnel around, great playmakers, all that, but he's looked pretty good for Seattle so far. I mean, honestly, if we go into kind of like passing grades through 2 weeks, according to Pro Football Focus, he's third in the NFL in passing grades. So stuff that you probably wouldn't have thought about with Sam Darnold. So I think this is just, you take the advantage. And plus, when are you going to really feel confident about that Seattle click again? I mean, it's on the road at Arizona, then it's the Bucs, then it's on the road at the Jags, then it's the Texans, then you got to bye, then it's on the road against Washington, then the Cardinals, on the road against the Rams. You kind of get my point. I mean, way out to week 12, maybe at Tennessee. But by then, I don't know, like Cam Ward is kind of shown a little bit of flashes that maybe he can get this thing figured out here with more games under his belt. So again, I see almost no future value in Seattle. So for me, they're going to get the bulk of my entries. Now let's talk about, he talks about the Bucs right here as his second choice. And we said, whenever we were over here looking at these spreads, the Bucs are 7-point favorites here over the Jets. Of course, the Jets are going to be without Justin Fields this week, going to be going with Tyrod Taylor. And, I understand the Bucs as well, and they'll probably I'm trying not to do the whole shove and go all in thing. And so maybe they get an entry or two for me. The problem is the Bucs, to me, have a ton of future value. So, they play New Orleans twice. You're never going to feel bad about rolling out the Bucs against New Orleans. They play Carolina twice. So you're never going to feel bad about rolling them out against Carolina. either. And so, for me, they got a home game against San Francisco with who knows what that situation is going to look like in San Francisco with the quarterback and Kittle and all this stuff that's going on there. I think the Bucks have too much future value for me to use them this week. So just for me, and again, this is stuff where I'm okay with taking on a little bit more risk. I am trying to win these pools, right? And so I want to have as many good teams down the stretch as I possibly can, and don't want to find myself in a situation where I'm almost forced to use a bad team because I've run through all these good teams. And so again, probably won't be on the Bucks for me this week. Interesting that he put the Commanders in here. I can't get to the Commanders this week. Jaden Daniels' situation is just way too volatile. Even if he plays, he's going to be banged up. He's not 100% with all of that. So for me, again, just taking on a little bit too much risk for me in that. So I don't think that that's anything that I'm going to be doing this week. I think let's go back over here to the big favorites. Talk about future value and why I don't want to waste a pick. And when I say waste a pick, if you're in a big pool, if you're in a smaller pool, you could play the Bills. It's 12.5 point favorites. Maybe you don't think you're going to need them down the line. But I mean, this team has as much or more future value than any team out there, basically. I mean, you're getting, it's Miami this week, but next week it's New Orleans. The week after that, it's the Patriots. They have a game against Carolina. They have another game against Miami. They have Cincinnati. We know Joe Burrow's not going to be out there. They have another game against New England, obviously, because it's their division. They play Cleveland. So there's just the Bills, as far as future value teams go, right up there with kind of Baltimore really is having the most future value, I think, left. So not going to get a play from me on Buffalo this week, though I imagine we'll probably get, certainly in that big Grandissimo contest with the $100,000 buy-in, probably going to get a decent amount. Now, this is the interesting one here for me is the Packers. This one is if I split my entries up this week and if I don't shove on Seattle, I do think that Green Bay and Atlanta are the two that I am going to be considering kind of going with. Let's start with Green Bay, 8-point favorites here, as you can see, on the road against the Browns. The Browns got just hammered this past week. Again, ended up throwing Dylan Gabriel in there. Packers look like maybe one of the best teams in the NFL right now, if not the best team in the NFL right now. And so I think that this is a pretty good, I know we don't love using road teams, but I think that this is a pretty good spot to use a road team. And if we're talking about future value with Green Bay, you do have a game against Cincinnati in week 6, which we know for sure Burrow will not be back for that one. So you do have a home game against Cincinnati in week 6. You also have a home game against Carolina in week 9. Does not look like Carolina is going to be very good either. You do have a road game in week 11 against the Giants. By then, you would think it's Jackson Dart. How is he adjusting to the NFL? That's the situation that you could do. It looks like Chicago's not very good. You, of course, have them as they're a division rival, so you get them twice. So for me, I was kind of looking at that Carolina game in week 9, or maybe even Cincinnati in week 6, depending on how all things play out, to use Green Bay. That said, I would not talk you off of Green Bay. I think it's a solid play. I think this Browns team's not going to win very many games. Joe Flacco starting to show his age and all of that and whatever. And so, not a bad play for me, but certainly, like I said, maybe a team that I'm also looking to kind of stash a little bit. The other one is the Falcons for me. And so the Falcons are sitting here as 6-point favorites against the Panthers. This Panthers defense cannot stop anybody. And while the offense has shown a little bit of signs of life with Bryce Young, especially this past week, buddy, this defense is atrocious. And if you talk about future value with the Falcons, it's not very high in my opinion either. If you look, it's not like they are completely dead, but It's a game against Miami in week 8. Miami doesn't look very great, but you're not going to feel great about rolling out against Miami. You do get a home game against Carolina further down the line in week number 11. But again, we got to make it to week 11, right? We got to make it to week 11. And so you do have that home game against Carolina week 11. That might be about it. There's a roadie at New Orleans in week 12, and then you don't get the Saints again until week 18. Now, you're probably feeling pretty good about that if you've made it all the way to the last week of the season. You have the Falcons and are able to roll them out against New Orleans. But, I mean, listen, I think that's getting a little ahead of ourselves to be looking out to week 18. I like to kind of plan till about the middle of the season and then understand that we're going to have to, shimmy and shake as these injuries and all these other things break out. So, I think for me, it's Seattle and Atlanta this week is how I'm going to go. Again, I can't really hate on Green Bay or Tampa, but like I said, I just like those teams a lot. I like those teams moving forward a lot. And same deal with Buffalo. I mean, just Buffalo to me, outside of maybe what you're getting from Baltimore, but they're like neck and neck for future value. You're never going to feel bad about rolling out Buffalo any given week. So, really, really want to hold on to them as well. So, very likely to see me on Seattle with a couple on Atlanta. If you want to play Green Bay, think that's perfectly fine. They would probably rank third for me in this one. Very, very close with the Bucks. Probably like 3A, 3B for Green Bay and Tampa for me. So Seattle, Atlanta, Green Bay, Tampa is 3A, 3B for me. I think anything else, again, is just getting a little bit too cute. I know we've seen a little bit of love for the Giants, but again, it is on the road. I mean, for the Chiefs, it is on the road at the Giants. Do we really need to do that? They got a home game against Vegas coming up. They have Indy on the schedule. They got Houston and Tennessee on the schedule and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. It seems to me like that's getting a little bit too cute. And then I know there's been a tiny bit on Indianapolis as well. That's on the road at Tennessee. Is that something we really want to kind of force right now? Even if we hate Tennessee, you get them at home in week 8, where you could use Indy at home against Tennessee in week 8. So again, Indy might end up being one of those teams I don't use, but I kind of am looking out at week 8 saying, okay, there's at least a landing spot to use them there in that one. So guys, hopefully you're still alive. Hopefully we're still talking about this here next week as well. Go over, check out Noop's over at Lineup, see his argument for some of these teams or against some of these teams over there as well. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button. Do appreciate it. And good luck on all your Survivor plays this week.